cool that we can do these online events and that it doesn't matter where we are. Today I have a pretty cool session about how to become a superstar for business applications, and this in 5 steps. I will have a checklist at the end, and I think you should see my screen. So first I have a few slides, and then I will go into my demo environment, and we will have a look on how it's going on in Power Apps, and you will see the model-driven Power Apps here. Okay, so let's start. First of all, I think you will see this sponsor slide a few times today. So thank you to our sponsors, because without them, these events wouldn't be possible. They are promoting these events. So thank you very much. And now let's have a look how to become a business application superstar. First, a few words, because as I said, I'm from far, far away in Germany. My name is Nicole Enders. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services. And my focus topics are around about the modern workplace based on Microsoft 365, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. I started my career with SharePoint, then Office 365 came up. And today I'm super excited about Teams and the Power Platform. So I cannot decide which components are better or which I like the most, because I think often it's a combination of all these tools. And yeah, I have my own blog, so you can find me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on my blog. If you want to hear something, please let me know. Now you have an impression what I'm talking and writing about. So, but now I want to tell you something about Tanya. And Tanya is one of my best friends. She's working in the same company as I, and she's working as an HR a recruiter. And often she asks me, Nicole, you tell me so many things. You can build applications, and you are doing with SharePoint, and now you are doing so much stuff in the cloud. And I know that in our company we are using Office 365. We need a business application. Our HR process, it's not the best, so we have little or some steps which are still paper driven, and we have different applications, for example, for the employees later and for the candidates who apply for a new job. Can we do something there? And I said to Tanya, okay, you know me now for such a long time. You know that I cannot give you an answer immediately. I will ask you 1, 2, or more questions. And now I have 3 questions which I ask in every project, and which are pretty important before we start with building an application. So it's always that you need to know what your customer or the end user really wants. And that's why I asked Tanya, what about our current business process? So how is it working? Do we use different tools to support our business process, or is it only one tool, or don't we have any tools for this stuff? And she has to think about every day what she really does there. Yeah, and then Tanya explains me, yes, it's not so bad at all, because we have one single application, and if a candidate applies for the job, then we have the application in the system. We can manage what's going on with this application. We have a history, and the colleagues who are going to the interviews or who have to evaluate if the candidate is good enough for a job, they can use the same tool. But what's really, really bad is how the application comes into the system. So at this moment, the candidate applies for the new job on our website, and then an email with an XML file and so on is sent to our recruiting system. And it's nearly the same when we decide, okay, we want to hire this candidate. If you have made this decision, then there is also some kind of an interface to another application where the customer or where the application is sent to the other system. Yeah, and then my next question is, should we optimize or change our business process? Tanya came to me because she thought that something is not in the best way. And that's why I asked her here, now you've explained how the process is going on at the moment. What should be the target situation? So should we change something? And how much can we change? I don't know if you have made the same experience when I talk to others and they tell me, okay, this process can be improved or this application is not the best and I want a new one. Yeah, that's fine. But if you tell them what will change in the future because they are using another standard product or so, then they say, oh no, the old tool was so much better. Can't I stay with the old tool? Yeah, and that's why this question is so important. So we have to talk about this, and everybody in the room needs to have the same big picture of this business process or of the future application. And last but not least, do we want to support the whole business process with an IT solution? So in some situations, you need so much flexibility. And if you want to support this with an IT solution, then it can be very hard to do this. It can be really, really expensive. So in some cases, it's better to say, okay, this little process step needs so much flexibility, and everybody is doing it in a little or some different way. So let's do this outside of the system, and after this process step, we go further in the application and we add some data, and that's fine. Yeah, what did Tanya next? I had to laugh as she told me what she was doing, but it's not so or such a surprise because I talk so often about SharePoint, and Tanya said, okay, I found a SharePoint version in our company. I have to say she found a very old SharePoint version, and she started creating some lists, and she added the necessary fields to manage the candidate data and the application data. Then she changed the order of these fields, and she was really proud, telling me that she added simple validations. So some fields are mandatory fields now. And then she said, yeah, but it's not so fine because I have now lists with many fields, and I have all the fields on one page, and I need some more rules. So some fields should only be visible in a special process step and so on. And I said to her, yes, that's possible, but you are using a very old SharePoint version and you are not in the cloud. And she said, yes, I found something. So there was a button, and it was called InfoPass. Nicole, is it fine? And I said, okay, some of my projects in the past, that InfoPass was used there, but it's deprecated, or you shouldn't use this anymore. So for all of you who don't know InfoPass, that was some kind of a self-service. So you had it as a part of the MS Office suite, and you could create electronic forms, and even out of SharePoint. So maybe you started in SharePoint, you created a list, and then you said, okay, I want to customize this SharePoint list form with InfoPass. And as you can see here, you have some kind of a designer. You see on the right side all your fields of the SharePoint list. And then you could say, okay, I want to create a first view where I have only 5 fields that are my first fields which have to be filled out. And then I add some rules to this, and I change the layout. So maybe I have some kind of a wizard later on. And I could also send some of the entered data via email to somebody. So maybe if I want to support some kind of a workflow, I had some stuff to do. And Tanya told me, yeah, I checked this out, but I cannot reach my goal. So my target application, it's far away. And finally, Tanya did the following. So she started with SharePoint and InfoPass, and I think she got nearly the 80% solution. But then she really wanted to have the 100% solution. And that's what I want to tell you. It's not the best decision to come to a 100% solution, because it gets really expensive for the last percentage points. So Tanya said, no, I want the 100%. And then she was talking to Daniel. Daniel is a software developer. He's working in my team. And he was asking a lot of questions. He saw what Tanya did in SharePoint and with InfoPass, and then he said, okay, Tanya, that's a nice prototype, but if you really want to have this final result and you need all the requirements to be implemented, then I will have a look on your prototype, but I will build it from scratch. So I'm thinking about HTML5. I will build a web service to get this special data, and I have to work with PowerShell to install everything. And did you hear about SPFX? So I will build you some pretty cool web parts. Forget about InfoPass. So we will have the SharePoint list to store the data, but everything else I will build in a completely different way. Yeah, Tanya heard everything, but she didn't understand what was Daniel talking about. So HTML, PowerShell, web service, SPFX. What is he doing and what is he talking about? And I really hope that he understood me, because I need this application. Why don't we proceed this way? I think the answer is pretty clear, because Tanya knows the business process and she knows what she really wants. So she wants a business application to support the recruiting process. And wouldn't it be a great idea if Tanya could build her business application by her own? So she don't need Daniel, maybe for only a special feature, but everything else can be built by her, and Daniel can build the single feature and integrate it into her application. That would be a nice way. And sorry about this. I'm a lot of the Rix fan, so I have 1 or 2 slides in all of my sessions. But I really like some of the main sentences here in Lord of the Rings. So the world has changed. So think about the old version, the old situation with SharePoint and InfoPass as the only tool for power users to build the custom applications. Now we have so many different services and apps in Microsoft 365. You'll see this in a few seconds. And everybody is able to build his own application. So it's time for the makers, I would say. Think about these hobbits. So the smallest persons in the whole story in Lord of the Rings. And this is a scene at the end of the whole story. So our hobbits are here. Everybody takes the knee. So at this moment, they are the tallest persons in the scene, and they can't really believe it. And I think that's a nice picture if we think about power users as Tanya. Her main job is to work as a recruiter in the HR department, but she needs a solution for her business process. And she can't really imagine what she's able to do. And we need somebody who tells her what she can do, as I will do this with you in this session. So you can build your own app, and I will show you how to do this. If we think about Microsoft 365, and I think you should get a similar screen if you go to office.com after you've logged in. You will see there are so many tools. For example, we have Microsoft Lists, we have PowerApps, we have Forms, To-Do Planner, and you only need to know which tool to use in which situation or for which requirement it's the best. And today I want to focus on the Power Platform, so mainly on Power Apps, but the Power Platform, that is my target environment for Tanya. So I said to her, forget about SharePoint, because you were using SharePoint as some kind of a database. SharePoint is a good solution if you want to work with documents, but documents were not the main requirements in her situation. So go with Power Apps, and maybe with a database included there. So that would be Dataverse, as you see it here at the bottom. And for your process, you should use Power Automate. So we will see a so-called business process flow in the demo. Yeah, and if you need to move data from one system to another, then maybe you can use some of the out-of-the-box data connectors. Or if there isn't an appropriate data connector, then you can ask Daniel to build a custom one, and then you can use this. So you are the master of the situation. You can think about if you need some dashboards later on, and you will use Power BI, or maybe you want to support the colleagues who are doing the interviews, and you will implement a chatbot with Power Virtual Agents. But your main tools will be Power Apps and Power Automate. And if you think a little bit further, then you should have an idea what's going on with Dynamics 365, because Dynamics 365 is the process platform here in our Microsoft environment. You need a special licensing for sure, but you should think about this, because as you can see here in the circle, we have different modules here in Microsoft in Dynamics 365. So for the standard business processes. So for example, talent is something for HR. So that would be a solution for Tanya as well, if you want to use a licensing there. If you are doing marketing stuff, or if you are working as a sales manager, then marketing and sales module would be really good for you. And one other example is here services. That's when you're working in a service area. If you are working based on tickets or so, then there's also a module. So please have a look what's going on there. It's not the main topic here in the session, but I think it can be pretty hard to think about if you use the out-of-the-box standard solution, as it is here in Microsoft Dynamics 365, or if you build your application by your own. It's always a case of the licensing and how much money you want to spend and which way, but you have also to think about, even if you are doing the apps on your own, it costs your time. So you need time to build these apps. And if there's a standard solution, then maybe that's a better option, but it's up to you. So now I would say let's build a business application. And that's the time where I go to my demo environment. So, and we are here. So that's PowerApps, the PowerApps Studio. And I start here at the home screen because I want to talk about the different options of apps we can build here. So if you're here on the start page, yeah, you could start from data, but I will show you how I start building my applications. But you have to decide which kind of app you want to build. And maybe some of you already know the Canvas app. Maybe you don't know the name, but you know that you can use PowerApps to build a mobile application or to customize SharePoint forms. So there's some similarities to InfoPath, I think. Yeah, but Canvas apps, that's where you can design your screens in a completely free way. So, for example, you have a start screen where you have only 2 or 3 buttons. You are using nice pictures and so on. And you're thinking more about the user interface. And after this, you are adding functionality to this user interface. So maybe you have a button, you decide what happens when I click on this button. On the other side, we have the model-driven apps, and as you can imagine of the name, it's more from a process or a data perspective. So you start in a different way, and I recommend to Tanya to start with the model-driven app because she's thinking about, here I have a candidate and I need to store the first name, the last name, the birth date, and so on of this candidate. And the candidate applies for a job. So for his application, I need to store data as which position he wants to apply for, when can he start in our company, and so on. So she's thinking about this. And additionally, she's thinking about what's the process. So first we get the application, then we need to do some kind of an initial rating. The next step can be a phone interview. Then you will have a real interview, I would say. And last but not least, you have to make a decision. So model-driven is the way she's thinking. So she should go with this option. And here, it's not really an app. Here you can go with portals. So maybe you want to show some of your data to a special group of people. So I could think about in the recruiting process, I could think about a portal for the candidates so they can log in, they can see which advertisements are out there, they can apply for the job, and maybe they see the status of their application. So it's like a website. You could think about this. Okay, we will go with the model-driven app, and I could click on this menu item here, but I won't do this because I want to do some more. And if I go here on my list, you find last but not least solutions. And I go with this option because maybe I start with this model-driven app, but later on I may build a Canvas app, maybe for our colleagues who are doing the phone interviews and they need a mobile application, and then I want to have everything together. So I'm going here with new solution, and I say, okay, that's 365 Friday, and I say it's HR recruiting. As you can see here in this list, I'm doing this demo some in some sessions, so it's there's always a backup here. So that's my display name, and as you can see, he removes the white spaces for the internal name, and now I have to select a publisher. And a publisher can be really useful to see who has created this app. So you may think about Tanya's building apps, and then we have an external service provider who is also building apps. Then it would be great to see, okay, these are internal apps and these are apps from a special service provider. And here I created a publisher called Conet. That's the company I'm working for. And I choose this, and I will explain a little bit later what's going on here with the publisher. So I go on create, and now I create this new solution, but there's nothing in the solution at this moment. So that's only to have some kind of a folder, I would say. Yeah, and now I want to create my app. But as I said, we think about the data we want to manage with our app. And if I go on new, then there's something like table. I said to Tanya, you are using SharePoint as some kind of a database. So in a database, you would have table, and a table has columns or fields. Yeah, and I could create a new table. I won't do this here in this session because I prepared something. That's why I go to add existing, and I say I want to add a table. And now I have to look about where is my application. Oh, application. We have you here. I'm always switching between German and English, so Werbung is the German word for application. I will use this at the moment. And here I select this option to include all components. I will explain why I do this when we see the app for the first time in a live situation. So include components. That's the application, but I need the candidate data as well. So I'm repeating this step, and I'm looking for my candidate. I thought I'll use the contact. Yeah, here. Candidate. Next, include all components, and I add this one. So now I have my data. You can think about so much more data you really need, but if I click on this, for example, then we see that it's loading the table. You see all the columns here. You can have relationships between different tables. You could implement business rules. So, for example, if you are entering a value in some of these fields later on, maybe there's a calculation and you cannot do something when you reached a special value or not. You can create views for the table. You can design the forms. You can do some kind of reporting here with dashboards and charts. And you can see the data if you want to. But I go back here to my solution. And now I create a new app. And I said we go with a model-driven app. And now I create my new app and I call it HR Recruiting Management. And do you see here this prefix? This prefix is assigned here to my app because I use the publisher Conet. So my publisher has a defined prefix, that's here CSPA. And every component, and an app here is a component, every app, every component will get this prefix. So we see the publisher Conet created this app. It's belonging here. And maybe later on, if you are not working with a special service provider anymore and you need to remove everything what was built by this service provider, then you have a really easy way to get everything with the special prefix. So you can add a description. We could also talk about offline stuff and so on, but it's not the case for Tanya at the moment. So she creates this one. And I think I use the same name. So I have to add something here for our special case. So I say 65 Friday. Done. So, and here we are. If you have created a Canvas app, then you would expect some completely different here. Here you're managing your data, your process, and so on. And in the second step, you can go to the known view to design the user interface. So first we see, okay, here this is sitemap. Sitemap is the navigation in our app. There's something wrong. Yeah, there's something wrong because we didn't define anything so far. But before we do this, I want to manage our entities because in our solution we added candidate and application, but we don't have it here in the app at the moment. And please remember that here in this designer, it's called entities, and in the solution, it was called tables. So entities was the old name. It's not renamed at the moment. You have to go with entities here. And I search the same for our application. See here, we get the entity here, and I go with our candidate, the same. I have it here. And here you can define which forms will be used, which views shall be there, and the reporting stuff. I will leave them as they are here at the moment. And we have the sitemap to work on. So I click here on save and I go to the sitemap. We are not in the app designer anymore. We are now in the sitemap designer. And now we can manage our navigation, and we have 3 levels in the navigation. So here our area, I can define new name. I say, okay, we will only do the master data management here in this session. So the new group, maybe that's candidate and application. And the sub area, that was why we got the arrow. You see it here with the red color as well. So what's about our link we want to add here? We want to link to an entity. And we want to link to the application entity. In some other cases, if you use other types, you can add a URL, maybe to an external system. And as you can see here, we have the language code here. So if you have activated different languages, then you can also build a multilingual application. And for the developers, that's an important section because, yeah, we get some IDs in an automatically way, but if you are a developer, then you know you have some naming conventions, how to name the special components. And I would say, okay, we are here in the sitemap and we have a menu item, and I call it applications. So if I go here and I want to have it in the English version here now with a different naming, then I can do this here too. And I add a second one because we have only the applications at the moment. I want to add the candidates as well. Then I'm repeating these steps. I'm selecting the candidates. And here you see it's getting really crazy. So sitemap, menu item, candidates. And that's it for the first step. I say save. And please don't forget to publish your sitemap. We also will publish our app, but we need to publish our sitemap. And that's really important for later if you have published your first version of the app and it's in usage and you are changing something. You will see the changes, but the end users won't see the change until you publish your new version. So I publish my sitemap. It's not so much at the moment, but I think you got that you can add new areas and groups and so on. And now I'm going back to the app designer. And I think we should start our application for the first time. You could do a validation, but I know everything should be fine. I will publish it. And now let's play the application. So opening a new browser tab. And as you can see, okay, we have here our new app. We have here candidate and applications. So it was the second level of our sitemap. And here is the third level. Yeah, and I think I showed you the candidates, but I didn't get to data on the tab, because here that can be some kind of confusing, because we only added 2 tables. We created our new app, but we see data here, and that's because I'm using these tables in different solutions, and I have one single table. So I can think about one huge data storage for your company data, and you can have different views on this data, and you can reuse this data. So you share this data with other applications. And we are here in the scenario of a recruiting process. So a candidate applies for a new job, but if he gets the job, then we already have all this data, and we can add more data with an application, maybe to manage the employee data. And later on, he's working in his first project, and we have a table to manage the project, but we already have his data, and then we can match these 2 data storages and build a application to do some kind of time scheduling for projects, for example. So you don't need to build interfaces to move data from one place to another. You have one data storage in your company. Yeah, and as I'm using this table in another context, that's why I have these data entries here. If I go on new, then you see it doesn't look like SharePoint. It doesn't look like in a Canvas app. It's more like Dynamics 365. So you use the same tools right there. And then you can add your data. You can maybe look for other data if you are using some kind of lookups. So if you have a relation between different tables, it would look this way. You can have validations and so on. But what I really want to show you before we come to the end of this session is how it's going on here for applications, because here it looks really the same as for the candidate. But if I go to one of these items, and I'm looking at this moment which I choose best one, maybe I go here. One. You see it looks a little bit different. So yes, here that's the same. We only have different data types here. We have other tables with a relationship to the application table here in there. So you could also see all the ratings done for this application, and maybe you will see all the documents and so on. But what's really impressive is this process bar. And as you can see, we have made our decision. We want to hire this candidate, and we need 5 months to do this. So this is a business process flow, and I want to show you how you can do this, and I will tell you why we see this here, as we didn't anything with business process flow so far. So we go back to the app designer, and you see you have a section business process flows here. And if I click on this, we see all available business process flows, and all of them are assigned to this app automatically. If you don't want to have this, then you can uncheck this and go with the option you want to use. So Personalauswahl would be the one I would go with, and then you are using only this process. Otherwise, it depends in which application, which entity you are going with. And I uncheck this here and I say create new. So I hope it will show up. I always say no, we should be kind to the demo god. So I go here back. Maybe I show you the existing one and I go here to edit. And I think it's really funny because here you have now not a new browser tab, you have a completely new browser window. So Microsoft is a little bit strange when which action is choose here. And here is our business process flow. It's built by Power Automate. We are here in Power Apps, but it's Power Automate, believe me. And then we build our different stages. These are the menu items you saw at the bottom or at the top on this line. And if I open the details, then you can decide which data you want to collect, or if you want to trigger a special process. So maybe you want to send an email to somebody, or you need an approval workflow. You can trigger this process. So you can go with a workflow, an action step, or maybe you start a flow to do this. You can add conditions. So maybe you say, okay, here in the initial rating, I want to get the rating result by the user. But after this, I have a condition. If he says, okay, please reject this application, then we will start a completely different process as in the case when somebody says, okay, everything's fine, let's proceed. And here's the same, you save your process. And if you see here a menu item and it's called activate, please click this, because otherwise you won't use this process flow in your context. And what I want to show you here is a create new, but we didn't see this, was that you create a new business process flow dedicated to one special table, or if you have the old naming, a special entity. And that's why we saw this here for the applications, because I did this in a previous version, and I can use this business process flow here in my new application. So that's fine, because you can reuse everything, and not everybody needs to build his own application by scratch. So if we wrap up, then I said to you, you will get a checklist to become a business application superstar. And the 5 steps are, first of all, take responsibility, be a citizen developer, be a maker. So decide that you want to build apps. Then learn to use the tools of the Power Platform. I didn't scroll down on the home screen of the Power App Studio, but you have a lot of tutorials there and really good information from Microsoft. So you can learn how to use Power Apps and Power Automate. And then start with a quick win solution. So everybody has some application or business process in his mind, and he wants to create this solution. But maybe start with a very, very little solution, and then you are happy that you got some improvements. You will get feedback, and then it will become bigger and bigger to a complete solution. And as it is always better if you have a few people to talk about, inspire your colleagues, because if you build a team, then you will have a lot of fun there, I'm pretty sure. And share your knowledge and talk about what you are doing. So there's always something when you think about it, so easy, everybody knows this, but somebody else would be happy if you tell him how to go with this, how to work with a special feature and so on. Yeah, and maybe someday you share your knowledge here on some of these events. But first, start with your colleagues so that you build one application after the other. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Right on. Thank you much. Everyone, speak up. Not everyone at once. I guess that's a no. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much. That was an outstanding presentation. A great way to kick off this event.
Yeah, it's always so much fun. I hope you all will have a great day. I think I won't have the time because it's getting too late here. But I wish you a really cool day today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Be safe and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
You too.